Darla Ariela here. Today I'll be reviewing the books I read over the summer while I wear an extravagant outfit in my living room. Enjoy! One of the first books that I started reading over the summer was A Separate Peace by John Knowles. And I did not realize I liked this book as much as I did until I finished the book. And I gave a little summary to my mother, to which she changed the ending because she didn't like the ending to it. And I actually was planning on returning this book. I didn't want to force myself to read it. My water bottle broke in the tote bag the book was in, and I was like, I can't return this book in this condition and not even have read the whole book. And I'm glad that I read it. So maybe the water bottle breaking was a signal to read the book, to finish the book. So this book followed two besties, Jean and Finney. Jean was a very quiet, studious guy, kind of very to himself, while Finney brought him out of his shell a little bit, and Finney was this outgoing guy. I'll read a quote that kind of shares his character a little bit better. The Devon faculty had never before experienced a student who combined a calm ignorance of the rules with a winning urge to be good, who seemed to love the school truly and deeply, and never more than when he was breaking regulations. I just love his way of going through life. He was a very positive, upbeat boy, and he looked for ways to make life fun. And that is what life is about. He had this whimsical state of mind that carried him through, I think, a lot of his issues. We talk about toxic positivity sometimes, which can definitely be an issue. But at the same time, I think a level of unrealistic positivity goes a long way. The next quote I'm going to read, Finney started wearing a pink shirt, which made him look like a fairy. And this was like unheard of at this time with boys, like to wear a pink shirt. You could be mocked, right? But the quote is, "It was hypnotism. I was beginning to see that Phineas could get away with anything. I couldn't help envying him of that. I couldn't help envying him that a little, which was perfectly normal. There was no harm in envying even your best friend a little." Well, it was very harmful to envy your friend Jean. This envy just kept growing, and eventually Jean actually shook the tree that Finney was jumping off of, and Finney broke his bone and was unable to walk for a while. He quite literally admitted that he was envying his bestie, but he didn't see the harm in it until after it took him overboard. You know what I mean? So Jean was convinced that Finney also held a little bit of jealousy in his heart. Jean said, "And I thought we were competitors." But it was only one-sided. Only Jean felt that way. And then Jean says again when he actually admits to his mistake to Finney. He says, "It struck me then that I was injuring him again. It occurred to me that this could be an even deeper injury than what I had done before." Emotional damage is just as strong as physical damage. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Brinker. I believe he acts as Jean's conscience, and he kind of hints at the truth through jokes. So Brinker tells Jean and a bunch of other guys that are in this room, he says, doing away with his roommate so he could have a whole room to himself. Rank is treachery, practically fratricide. So Jean's attempt to play along with the joke fails because he can't get the one true statement out of his throat. And that just shows you the strength of his guilt, that he did feel bad for his mistakes, even though it was too late to really change his actions. Last character I'm going to talk about in this book is Leper. He's also one of my favorites, along with Finny. I like I like Leper because he's observant and sensitive, and he's a bit whimsical. And Jean tries to give Leper this traditional option for skiing. He's like, "You should go downhill. Why are you cross country skiing?" But Leper's not interested in rushing through the hill, the journey, or his life. And Leper says, "Well, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just touring around." And he also says skiing isn't supposed to be fast. Skis are for useful locomotion. As I mentioned, both Leper and Finny are my favorite characters in this book. And the reason why is because they're both very sure of who they are as a person. They're not so easily influenced, and they're very comfortable breaking society's rules, but always think of their peers' feelings in the process. While Jean, in theory, always cares about following rules, but when the rules most mattered, he broke them. Jean takes life too seriously and thinks others should too. Because he's not sure of his own character, he's forcing these ideas onto other people who are sure of their character. And the confidence other people exude makes Jean uncomfortable. When we're constantly relying on other people's opinions, we become unsure and unconfident, and then that leads to jealousy and envy because the people around you are going to continue to be confident and you have to catch up. My next book is Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I'm embarrassed to say that I have not read one of her books until this summer. I enjoyed this book, but I also was ready to be finished with it once it was finished. Does that make sense? So this book follows a young lady. She's 17 years old. Her name is Catherine, and she's about to go away on Bath, and she's gonna have some time to really understand life on her own, away from her family, away from all that she knows. I love a book like that. I love a girl finding her independence. And so she meets new people. She has this friend named Isabella, and she is very much mesmerized by this Mr. Tilney. And some of the quotes that I'm about to read to you right now, I'm just blown away by. First is, "Friendship is certainly the finest balm for the pangs of disappointed love." So Isabella is a girl's girl, at least in the beginning. At least in the beginning. So Isabella, she speaks kind words about her friends. And this is one thing that was written. "I think her as beautiful as an angel, and I am so vexed with the men for not admiring her. I scold them all amazingly about it. There is nothing I would not do for those who are really my friends. I have no notion of loving people by halves. It is not my nature. My attachments are always excessively strong. The men think us incapable of real friendship, you know, and I am determined to show them the difference." That quote is beautiful, stunning. She was really supportive of her friends, and she didn't understand why men didn't see the woman in her life in the same light. And that just goes to show you how important female friendship is. Like, our female friends can look at us in a beautiful light. And I just love that she's like all about proving men wrong. She's like, the men think we're incapable of real friendship. You know, men at this time, they're even now, they like to dull our senses, dull our capabilities. But Isabella was like, I'm not having that. Our friendship is deep rooted and strong. Next quote is Catherine speaking to Tilney, and then Tilney speaking to Catherine. I am naturally indifferent to flowers, but now you love a hyacinth, so much the better. You have gained a new source of enjoyment, and it is well to have as many holds upon happiness as possible. Besides, a taste for flowers is always desirable in your sex as a means of getting you of outdoors and tempting you to more frequent exercise than you would otherwise take. I think it's funny and sometimes true that he said that a flower can get women outdoors or get more frequent exercise. I don't want to leave my house to see people. I want to leave my house to see nature and to select few people. So it's a good quote. Next book is Much Ado About Nada by Usma Jalaluddin. And I read this whole book almost on the beach, and it was such a great read. So this book is about a woman named Nada who is going to meet her bestie's fiance at a Muslim convention where she will run into her ex. And she's trying to avoid the situation, but she can't any longer. And the side story is that one of her colleagues actually stole her business idea. And usually for side stories of a romance, you're kind of just like looking for the love aspect, but I really like the side story and seeing how she was cheated and then she fixed it in that process. The story between Nada and Baz is really cute because it goes from present day to the past. And you see how Nada used to be a bully to Baz, but you see how both characters progress and grow, and it's so cute. I like it. My final book that I'll be talking about is Sociopath by Patrick Gog. But I think this book is riveting because it's a memoir. It's a memoir about her own life as a sociopath. When you pick it up, you kind of think, oh, this might be an unreliable author. But I think she spoke the truth. Yeah, this was broken off into three parts, and her first part was about her childhood, going through her thought process. It was very shocking. But as the book went on, you could definitely see her like developing some sort of moral compass. So I'll be sharing the quotes I enjoyed while reading. First is on page 130. I approached bad behavior like a discipline. I was responsible about it, as I was about my job, and my routine was strict. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, I sought a daily dose of sociopathic stress relief. So, in her life, she was not exposed to other sociopaths. She didn't even know what her disorder was at first. And so she had to create her own prescription, her own way of dealing with it. And this was her best way of dealing with it at the time. And there was not many resources for herself. And she only learned about this condition once she was in college and taking a psychology class. And then she was reading books about the condition, but there was barely anything available. So she created these different prescriptions, these different observations in her own life to try to relieve her stress, to live a balanced life as much as she could. On page 140, she confesses to her dad that she crashes funerals as part of this prescription. But she writes checks to the families. And he asks her, "So, what is it that you're saying, Patrick? That you're some sort of sociopathic Buddhist?" Yeah. I like this quote on page 177. Jazz music had always had a profound, almost paranormal effect on me. The rhapsodic notes never eased my apathy, but they did sit alongside it, like a silent companion or a perfectly paired glass of wine. I was always careful with the dosing. I think I was worried the music might lose its power if I had listened too much. Patrick went through this revelation that she believed anxiety went hand in hand with being a sociopath, and she wrote, "Because the mainstream opinion is that not having feelings is bad, sociopaths from a very early age are taught to hide or deny their apathy, lest they become outed as monsters. So the emotional void becomes a trigger for stress, for anxiety, which leads to destructive behavior. It's a vicious cycle." She's understanding her problem now. She's understanding her brain, and she's doing the best she can. She's looking for solutions, and she's not just looking for solutions for herself. She wants to solve these big problems, her anxiety, for the sake of others as well. And one more quote: "People tended to dress me up, usually with their own ideas of how a sociopath should feel, or behave, or react. The result was a kind of deception by proxy. People invented a version of me for themselves, and then blamed me when their invention fell apart. It was unsettling and destabilizing." I like this quote because I think a lot of people could relate to it, not just sociopaths. People like to dress people up to their own imagination. And then once you actually reveal your character, who you are, the pictures don't match up, and it confuses people because people have a tendency to think they know better than everyone else. Okay, your perception can be really strong, but how are you going to believe your perception is stronger than someone else's identity and someone else's truth? Now that someone is revealing their true character over a longer period of time, why do you still think you have the stronger evidence of who a person is? I really enjoy delving into her mind and hearing such a unique perspective on life. Tell me down in the comments, what was your favorite summer read? Recommend me some books. I hope you enjoyed my summer reading list. Ciao.